Why would a leader known for toughness, bold words, and hard deals suddenly change tone with a country that once stood in the background of global politics? Why would power bend when it was expected to push harder? The answer lies in a shift that most people didn't see coming. A story not just about politics, but about power, pride, and a nation rising with quiet force. Think about it. For decades, the world looked at one country as only a service hub, a place for cheap labor or a distant partner. But while the world was busy watching somewhere else, this nation was building its strength, step by step, year by year, until it could no longer be ignored. Its economy surged, its technology reshaped industries, its people began influencing global policies. By the time the world noticed, it was already too late to treat it like an option. It had become a necessity. And that's where the story gets interesting. Because when power depends on someone it once underestimated, the game changes. The rules are no longer written in just one capital. They are now shared. This is why the hard tone had to soften, not out of weakness, but out of recognition, out of respect, out of reality. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover is not just about two nations. It's a lesson about dignity, strength, and how the underestimated always rise when they stop asking for approval. India's rise can no longer be dismissed as a distant dream. For years, the world saw it as a country of potential, but today it has stepped firmly into reality. The numbers tell a story of transformation. With more than 1 billion people, a rapidly growing middle class, and one of the fastest expanding economies in the world, India has become a center of gravity in global affairs. This is not a minor shift, it is a massive realignment that the world's biggest powers cannot afford to ignore. The economy alone is proof of this momentum. India has moved from being an outsourcing hub to becoming an innovation powerhouse. It is producing startups at a record pace, creating new industries, and shaping markets that stretch far beyond its borders. What was once a service-driven economy has now expanded into manufacturing, defense, renewable energy, and cutting-edge digital platforms. The country is no longer waiting to be included, it is taking its place at the table. Population adds another layer to this strength. India now holds the world's largest workforce. Millions of young, skilled, and ambitious people are entering industries across technology, engineering, medicine, and science. This demographic edge is unlike anything the world has seen before. It is not just numbers, it is energy, innovation, and drive. Every major economy is looking toward India, not just as a partner, but as a force that will shape the future of global growth. Influence has followed naturally. India's voice carries weight in international forums, trade talks, and strategic partnerships. Nations that once overlooked it now recognize that no serious global decision can be made without considering India's role. Its stand on neutrality, independence, and self-reliance has given it a unique position, neither too dependent on one bloc nor entirely aligned with another. This balance has made India a country others want and often need on their side. This is where America comes into the picture. The United States has long been the most powerful economy in the world, but even it cannot ignore how dependent it has become on India. The relationship is no longer one-sided. From trade deals to joint ventures, from technology to defense, America has found itself leaning on Indian strength in ways that were unthinkable 2 decades ago. Technology is perhaps the clearest example. Silicon Valley thrives on Indian talent. Many of the leading companies in the world are run by people of Indian origin. Software, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity all have Indian fingerprints on them. The U.S. cannot risk weakening ties with the very country that supplies much of the brainpower driving its innovation. This dependence flips the old narrative on its head. India is not chasing opportunities anymore. Opportunities are flowing toward it. Trade tells a similar story. America imports pharmaceuticals, technology services, and manufactured goods from India, while American companies invest heavily in India's growing markets. The scale of exchange has grown to the point where pulling back would hurt the U.S. as much as, if not more than it would hurt India. That is the reality of interdependence in today's world. This shift in balance changes the rules. Where once India had to accept terms dictated by stronger powers, now it negotiates with leverage. Its confidence comes from strength that is both visible and undeniable. America, used to being the one in control, must now approach India with respect, recognizing that cooperation matters more than domination. Power is not only about military might or financial muscle. It is also about the ability to shape choices, to hold influence without begging for approval. India's new global weight shows exactly that. It is not asking to be recognized anymore. It is proving itself through action, growth, and resilience. And for America, this means softening its stance is not optional. It is necessary because ignoring India is no longer an option. The rise of India's technology sector is not just an economic achievement. It is a shift that has reshaped how the world views innovation. Once seen mainly as a back-office hub for outsourcing, India has transformed into a leader in digital development. From artificial intelligence to fintech, from cloud services to space technology, Indian companies and engineers are at the front lines of building the future. This is not simply about coding or software support. It is about pioneering solutions that are shaping industries worldwide. Artificial intelligence is one of the clearest examples. Indian startups and research centers are creating AI tools for healthcare, education, and business, offering models that are affordable and scalable. In a world racing toward automation, India's contributions are not only significant but essential. The ability to innovate at scale while keeping costs lower than in many Western nations has made India a central player in the digital economy. This influence is no longer hidden. It is now openly recognized in global markets and international partnerships. Software exports add another layer to this story. India is among the largest exporters of IT services in the world. Companies in every corner of the globe rely on Indian expertise for systems integration, cybersecurity, cloud management, and digital transformation. These services are not just supporting businesses, they are enabling entire industries to adapt to the modern age. When global corporations plan their strategies, India's role is often built into the foundation of their technology roadmaps. That level of reliance demonstrates true power. At the heart of this reliance lies Silicon Valley. The tech capital of the world has, for decades, depended on Indian talent to drive its innovation forward. A striking number of CEOs, engineers, and thought leaders in America's most powerful companies are of Indian origin. They are leading giants in software, hardware, and internet services, proving that India's impact is not limited by geography. This brainpower has woven itself into the very fabric of American innovation. Without it, the pace of progress in Silicon Valley would slow down and the dominance of U.S. tech companies would be threatened. Technology is not the only arena where India's importance shines. Defense and security are just as critical. India's role as a strategic partner has grown rapidly over the past 2 decades. With one of the world's largest standing armies and a defense industry that is modernizing at record speed, India has positioned itself as a nation capable of both defending its own borders and contributing to regional stability. This matters not only for its own security, but also for the balance of power in Asia. The key factor here is China. As China expands its influence across Asia and beyond, the world watches closely. Many nations feel the pressure of this growing power, but India stands as a counterweight. Its geographic position, military strength, and growing alliances make it one of the few nations capable of balancing China's ambitions. For the United States, this role is invaluable. America's global strategy depends on allies who can share responsibility for maintaining stability, and India's presence in the region provides exactly that. Military cooperation between India and the U.S. has expanded in ways that reflect this mutual recognition. Joint exercises, defense agreements, and technology sharing programs highlight how seriously both nations view this partnership. For the U.S., supporting India means building a stronger front in Asia. For India, the relationship offers access to advanced weapons intelligence and strategic networks. Together, this alliance is not about dependence but about shared strength. The merging of technology and defense also creates a powerful combination. India's advancements in cybersecurity, satellite technology, and space exploration feed directly into its defense capabilities. By building indigenous systems and reducing reliance on imports, India is proving that it can protect itself while contributing to global security. This independence adds weight to its position in international negotiations. When technology and defense are considered together, the message becomes clear. India is not simply catching up, it is leading in ways that matter most for the future. From digital innovation to military strength, from exporting software to balancing China, India has secured a place that no major power can afford to overlook. For America, this reality means that India is no longer a junior partner, but a cornerstone in both innovation and security. Geopolitics is often a game of pressure, persuasion, and power plays. But India has changed the rules in its own way. For the United States, keeping India close is no longer just an option. It has become a necessity. The global map has shifted. New alliances are being tested, old ones are fading, and emerging powers are finding their voices. In this environment, America understands that it cannot afford to lose India's friendship. Losing India would not only weaken its strategy in Asia, but also hand over influence to rivals who are eager to fill the gap. India's position on the global stage is unique. Unlike many nations that align fully with one bloc, India has maintained a neutral yet firm stance. It does not bend easily under pressure, nor does it isolate itself from partnerships. This careful balance has earned India respect from both sides of the global divide. It can engage with the West without cutting off ties with Russia. It can work with the Middle East without alienating Europe. This flexibility makes India not just another ally, but a valuable one that provides balance in a polarized world. America knows that such an ally is rare, and losing it would be a strategic mistake. The test of this friendship came through trade pressures. When America tried to impose tariffs and demand one-sided deals, it expected India to yield quickly. After all, that was the pattern with many other nations. But India responded differently. It did not react with aggression or panic. Instead, it chose calm strength. It made it clear that it would not compromise its own interests for the sake of temporary concessions. This response was not just about economics, it was about dignity. By refusing to bow to pressure, India sent a strong message. It is willing to cooperate, but only as an equal. This stand forced America to rethink its approach. Tariffs and tough talk, instead of breaking India down, ended up proving India's resilience. Rather than being intimidated, India found ways to adjust, diversify, and strengthen its own markets. It built closer ties with other trade partners, invested in self-reliance, and reminded the world that it had more options than many assumed. The calm response worked in India's favor. While America expected resistance or retaliation, It instead found itself facing quiet firmness. That firmness carried more weight than anger ever could. It showed the world that India's strategy is not about shouting louder, but about standing taller. This subtle but powerful approach has become one of India's greatest strengths on the global stage. For America, the lesson is clear. Pressure may work on weaker economies, but with India, it backfires. Every attempt to corner India only highlights its independence. Every tough word only reinforces its determination. The result is that America is learning to deal with India differently, not as a junior partner, but as an equal player whose cooperation must be earned, not demanded. This dynamic has changed the nature of their relationship. The United States now recognizes that maintaining India's friendship requires respect and compromise. It is no longer enough to dictate terms. Negotiation must be mutual. This shift in approach is not just about trade. It reflects the broader geopolitical reality that India has carved out for itself. A nation that can resist pressure and still maintain balance becomes a stabilizing force in a turbulent world. In the bigger picture, this is why India is so valuable. It does not swing like a pendulum between powers. It does not crumble when pushed. It holds its ground, engages with confidence, and makes choices that serve its long-term interests. For America, this kind of partner is rare and irreplaceable. That is why the friendship must be preserved, even if it means softening a hard stance. India has built a reputation for independence, a trait that separates it from many other nations on the global stage. While some countries adjust their policies quickly to fit the demands of powerful allies, India has shown time and again that it does not bow easily to outside pressure. This independent spirit is not arrogance. It is the result of confidence, history, and a commitment to protecting its own national interests. It is a reminder that true partnerships are based on respect, not submission. When faced with external demands, India often chooses a different path. Instead of rushing to please, it evaluates the situation carefully and decides based on its own priorities. This approach may frustrate stronger nations that are used to immediate compliance, but it also earns India respect. Independence creates trust, because the world knows India will not shift its position just to satisfy one side. That firmness makes it a reliable partner in a way that is rare in international politics. For leaders in powerful nations, this independence forces a change in strategy. Hardline tactics that might work elsewhere often fall flat when applied to India. Leaders who expect quick concessions instead find themselves facing calm resistance. This pushes them to rethink their approach, softening rhetoric and seeking common ground. India's refusal to bend becomes leverage, proving that it can negotiate from strength rather than weakness. The ability to hold firm against pressure changes the balance of power in subtle but undeniable ways. This independent stance is not only about government decisions. It reflects a broader mindset shaped by history. India has lived through colonial rule, economic struggles, and countless attempts by outsiders to influence its direction. Out of those experiences came a determination to protect sovereignty at all costs. That history makes independence not just a choice, but a principle. In modern politics, it becomes a shield and a source of pride, giving India an edge that even powerful leaders must respect. At the same time, influence extends far beyond India's borders. Millions of Indian Americans have made their mark in the United States, forming one of the most successful diaspora communities in the world. They are not only business leaders, doctors, and engineers, but also professors, entrepreneurs, and policymakers. Their success has created visibility and influence that no politician can afford to ignore. When they speak, they represent both professional achievement and cultural pride. This diaspora is growing in political weight. Indian Americans are active in civic life, contributing to campaigns, shaping debates, and participating in government. Their voices are being heard more clearly than ever, and their influence stretches across party lines. In a country where every vote matters, this community has become an important force. Leaders know that overlooking them would mean losing valuable support, not just in numbers but in influence that spreads across industries and institutions. For any American administration, this presents a clear reality. Taking a harsh or dismissive stance toward India could backfire at home. The diaspora's connection to their roots is strong, and their ability to shape public opinion is significant. Respect for India abroad often translates into respect from Indian Americans at home. Leaders cannot separate the two without risking consequences. This connection ties domestic politics in the U.S. to foreign policy decisions about India in ways that are unique and powerful. The combination of India's independent stance and the diaspora's influence creates a dual force that no leader can easily overlook. On the one hand, India itself refuses to yield to pressure, maintaining dignity on the world stage. On the other hand, Indian Americans within the United States add an extra layer of accountability, reminding leaders that their approach toward India will be judged not just overseas but at home as well. This reality is what makes India different from many other nations. Its independence, backed by a strong diaspora, ensures that its voice is amplified both internationally and domestically. Leaders who once believed they could dictate terms now find themselves rethinking, adjusting, and softening their approach, not because they want to, but because they must. India has never believed in putting all its weight behind just one ally. Instead, it has built a network of partnerships that stretch across continents. This strategy has given it both flexibility and leverage. While the United States often expects loyalty from its partners, India has chosen a different path, one where cooperation is based on mutual respect, not dependence. This makes India harder to pressure, but also more valuable as a friend. Russia remains one of India's oldest partners. The relationship goes back decades, rooted in defense, energy, and political support at critical moments. Even today, a large share of India's military equipment comes from Russia, and new agreements continue to deepen that bond. This connection ensures that India always has a reliable supplier of arms and strategic support, no matter how global dynamics shift. For Washington, this long-standing tie is a reminder that India has other options if relations become strained. Europe adds another layer to this web of partnerships. Trade agreements, technology exchanges, and climate initiatives link India closely to European powers. Europe sees India as both a vast market and a democratic partner in balancing global challenges. Whether it is clean energy, digital innovation, or infrastructure development, India's collaboration with Europe is growing quickly. These ties give India access to advanced technology, investments, and political backing, reducing the need to lean too heavily on any one ally. The Middle East is another arena where India has built strong bridges. With its huge demand for energy, India depends on this region for oil and gas. But the relationship goes far beyond resources. Millions of Indian workers live and work across Gulf countries, creating cultural and economic bonds that are difficult to break. In return, India has invested in stronger political and defense ties with nations like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Iran. These relationships provide stability, security, and trade channels that expand India's reach well beyond its borders. All of this points to one clear fact. America knows India has choices. It is not a nation that can be cornered with ultimatums. Every time pressure comes from Washington, India can lean on its other partners to balance the weight. This independence makes India a stronger player and forces America to treat it with more respect. Leaders in the U.S. realize that if they push too hard, India could strengthen ties elsewhere, leaving America on the sidelines. This is the core of what might be called the Trump dilemma. On one hand, Trump built his image on being tough in negotiations, using pressure and bold words to secure what he wanted. On the other hand, applying that same strategy to India came with real risks. If he went too hard, America could lose a vital partner in Asia, handing over influence to Russia, Europe, or even China's rivals in the Middle East. That would weaken America's position in a region where balance is everything. If Trump softened his approach, however, it meant accepting that India would set the terms of cooperation. This was not a comfortable position for a leader used to being in control. It meant acknowledging that India had leverage and that maintaining the relationship required compromise. For a figure who thrived on projecting dominance, this was a difficult adjustment, but it was also a necessary one because the cost of losing India would far outweigh the discomfort of negotiating on equal footing. The dilemma reflects a larger truth about modern geopolitics. No single power can dictate the rules anymore. Rising nations like India have enough influence, options, and alliances to resist one-sided demands. America, and Trump in particular, had to recognize that the old ways of dealing no longer worked. Cooperation had to replace coercion, and respect had to replace pressure. India's global partnerships made sure of that, leaving the U.S. with a clear choice: soften the stance or risk being left behind. The world often underestimates quiet progress. While headlines focus on dramatic conflicts and bold statements, true power is built step by step, away from the spotlight. This is exactly what happened with India. For years, its growth seemed ordinary to those who were not paying attention. It was dismissed as potential that might take decades to materialize. Yet beneath the surface, the transformation was happening. By the time America looked closely, India had already secured a position that could no longer be challenged or ignored. This was the blind side moment. A nation once considered a follower had become a leader in multiple arenas. The economy was no longer dependent on outside aid, but thriving on its own terms. The technology sector was not just servicing global corporations, but driving innovation for the future. Military strength had expanded, trade partnerships had multiplied, and diplomatic influence had spread far beyond its region. What appeared gradual to some was in fact a rapid climb to global relevance. America's strategy was built on the assumption that India needed it more than the other way around. But that assumption collapsed when reality became clear. India had diversified its options, built alliances across continents, and invested in independence. This shift caught Washington off guard. Instead of a country waiting for approval, America found a confident partner negotiating from strength. That realization forced a change in tone. For Trump, known for his hard stances and tough words, this shift was particularly striking. His approach thrived on the ability to pressure others into concessions. But India did not fit that mold. Each attempt to push was met not with panic, but with calm resistance. Instead of backing down, India stood its ground, offering cooperation, but only on equal terms. This quiet confidence left Trump with fewer choices than he was accustomed to. The adjustment was unavoidable. If Trump chose to double down and remain aggressive, the risks were high. America could not afford to lose India's friendship, not when China's influence was growing and other alliances were uncertain. If he chose to walk away, America would isolate itself from one of the fastest growing powers in the world. Neither of these options served U.S. interests. That left only one path to soften his stance: to recognize India's weight and to engage with respect. This moment revealed how much the balance of power had shifted without being noticed. The world had changed, and India had been one of the drivers of that change. It was not asking for a seat at the table anymore. It had already taken one. By the time America looked up, India had become essential in trade, technology, defense, and diplomacy. The blind side was not about speed, but about underestimation. The U.S. simply did not expect India to grow into such a strong, independent force so quickly. The lesson here is powerful. Influence does not always come from loud declarations. Sometimes it comes from quiet persistence, from building step by step until the foundation is unshakable. India's rise showed that when a nation invests in itself, stands firm in its values, and builds relationships widely, it can reshape global dynamics almost without warning. America found itself facing a partner it could no longer direct, but had to respect. Trump's adjustment was less about choice and more about survival. To keep America's interests safe, he had to shift his strategy to maintain influence in Asia. He had to accept India's new role to protect America's economic and technological edge. He had to acknowledge that India was no longer a supporting actor, but a central player. The blindside moment had arrived, and it left no room for denial. In the end, the story is not about one leader changing his tone. It is about a world realizing that power had moved in a new direction. India had risen quietly but firmly until its position was undeniable. By the time America noticed, the only option left was to adjust. India's rise is rewriting the rules of global politics. It shows that strength is no longer measured only by who speaks the loudest, but by who builds steadily, stands firm, and refuses to be ignored. The shift we see today is clear proof that even the strongest leaders must adapt when faced with a nation that knows its worth. Power is no longer one-sided. Respect must flow both ways. If this perspective opened your eyes, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful insights and motivational speeches.